2, 1.
Hello, hello, this is Lisa Luciarden with Bold and Brave across the nation and internationally. I wanted to say that I am so grateful that there's such brave men and women in our country, whether they're ministers, priests, children, mothers, fathers, young people, old people, they see the hope of the future. My name is Lisa Luciarden, and this is my show, Bold and Brave, across the nation and internationally. I wanted to say that I'm so excited because I just heard, which I love so dearly, is Bishop Mari Emanuel. He's with the Greek Orthodox Church, and he's very well known, but I adore him, just like I adore other priests, but he tells us the way that we're going to protect and save America, and the difference between the beauty of Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son, and the other religious leaders is that we're one by God. There's a heart change. There's a heart change. Our heart changes when we're one by God. And I made some beautiful songs. I'm sorry I said they're beautiful, but I made some songs about America. About America. Just recently, I made a song about the Texas man's got those hats of God, of love. They are the beauty to bring peace and joy. They says, get up on those horses and spur on the power of God's love to live in the heart of God across the nations, across the nations. So I made some songs about this. I have many songs, and I really like that one because it talks about the heart. The heart has to change. The heart has to change, and that's where we could make it, is when our heart has changed. Just like if you look at Reagan's speeches, he has like a tender heart. It's just not like acting. I knew Reagan's, I knew a lot of Reagan's friends. They were my neighbors. So, and I heard about his tenderness and his sweetness, and you see that with President Trump. You see that with George Washington. You see that with J.F. Kennedy. The tenderness to keep America the way she's supposed to be, a Judeo-Christian nation, to be putting American people first. And I wanted to say that it's the change of heart that we could take care of these catastrophes. And because I identify myself really as a geopolitical specialist politician, but I love music. I've allowed to develop my music because that was many of the things that my children developed. And this is what we need to do. We need to allow our country to be who she's supposed to be in each individual, but at the same time have respect for the Judeo-Christian nation. But because there is changes, as I told you, there's changes of the way the world is going around now. I'm trying to make it very elementary for you. I told you there's the pillar of light that is technology and information. There's a pillar of laws and regulations. There's a pillar of everyday existence and exchange of business, international and nationally. And there's a pillar of government. And so what happened is that the technologies went up so fast, and the information, that it wasn't addressed legally properly for the existence of humans in the highest justice. And then there's the government of world controls, and the government of world and other controls on the other side of the very powerful. And what happened is that those are all the pillars. Try to see and picture it, because it is a little complex, but it could be fixed if we change from the heart individually. But there's geopolitical powers now. There's geopolitical technology, geopolitical economy, and there's the nine or 10 geopolitical, powerful, elite billionaire companies. And I try to explain this to you many times, but it's very important that you understand the life is changed. It's not like 20 years ago. And then there's also many criminal politicians and world power controls on the other side that's underneath. They're all this is in the dirt, is the dirt of hell. Really, it's not life. And that's what actually Bishop Marmari Emmanuel said. He says, I will give up my life, and same with me, to say this, and I have. I've had many violences, many things happen to me, death and come back to life, because I've had violence, because I've said things that they don't want to believe, and they were against freedom, and even against Trump. They've been planning all these strategic tragedies of the greatest atrocity of human existence of time. It's all been set up. First, when they were so shocked that Trump got in, they were shocked that they weren't prepared for that. That's why they made all those problems for him in the beginning when he was getting in, and then also when he was in, then the CCP virus they had planned to depopulize the CCP vaccination. They also did lockdowns, which lockdowns weren't needed. They weren't needed. They didn't have enough statistics even to give the vaccinations. And I predicted all this before, that they shouldn't have given the vaccinations. They don't have any proof scientifically. And then also, they also did the lockdowns, and then they knew it was going to cause a big economy problem because of this. And at the same time, they were letting in many immigrants. And there's many things, and then the World Health Control, the World Economic Control, the WHO, and then, so those are all strategic things that were happening at the same time since the CCP virus, but they were planning that. But you have to realize they've always wanted world control. It's called the Third World Order, that they want to control America. They were always trying to control America. Even in the 70s, as I told you in my other podcast, in the 70s, listen, brothers and sisters, that's when they made rules and regulations and laws where they didn't give enough wage to the everyday worker to be able to have enough money for their everyday living. In the 70s, and they gave all the wage and monies to the higher power, to the upper echelon that owned the companies, that they had a better tax write-off. They made most of the money. That's where a lot of our problem began in the 70s, when they didn't give a higher wage. You could see that. It's one of my podcasts, and you can look that up. So we used a lot of our credit, and then many upper middle class and middle class, because we had a strong upper middle class and middle class before the 70s, and we had a lot of savings. They did, but they had to use that and to exist, and then they used a lot of credit, which credit is good if it's used in a proper way. But we need to change the wages. We need to take care of and help the middle class and uplift them. But I wanted to say, though, that those are my coin ideas, that we have to realize that things have changed. So we need to make different changes. It's called the Aristotle categories. When you have a disease, a heart disease, and the medicines, because I've been in the medical practice for 20 years, worked side by side with my ex-husband, a physician, as a PA, all different ways in the medicine practice. And I wanted to tell you that when you're the medicine, okay, the medicine of the heart medicine has to change sometimes because the heart gets used to it, or the environment changes, so you have to deregulate the medicine. And that's the way with America. Her heart has changed. She had such a big heart in a lot of ways that she let many immigrants in, and also a big heart that maybe these very wealthy, they thought that they were doing in good intention, but that's the way they set up the monies. You could call it greed, you could call it God intention. They thought that they made the right decisions to have all the monies of the growth, the GDP of all the money's made in the United States. Most of it goes to the first 3%, and everyone else is off the charts. So they might think they're doing a good intention, but it in the long run, it's not. It starves the people. It starves them who they are. That's why we have a middle class dying. We need to uplift it again. But I believe we can. But we are at war, America. We are at war. And the war that we are at is, the war that we're at, brothers and sisters, is America. I want to say that this is actually, we should stand up. We should stand up and say, we are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so blessed that we have the strength in the power in the existence is still existing in America, but we've been taxed. The people had to take the blunt. So let's sit down at the table and say how we're going to fix this. And what are the wars that America's with? You know the wars. It's the war with it's really America's war. The Ukraine and Russia, is Israel and Hamas. The world controls of all the world monies of the world controls of the way they distribute the wage, the way they try to do the lockdowns and the CCP virus. That was a war. That was a war on the people, then also the borders. So let's go to each point right now, what's happening. Remember, I am independent. My name's Lisa Lichi Arden. I wrote the book Arnie to Give to the World, Heal America, Love and God, and Arise to God's Truth, Restore and Keep America's Freedom. And I have many articles and many writings. You can look me up at Lincoln. So I don't always have the latest news, okay? But I try to find solutions on how to fix it and say how we're going to fix this and make you aware. So that's why we need to have leaders that put America first. And that's why we need to vote President Trump. Now, I want you to take your glasses off and just pause and pray a little bit and look at the heart, like Bishop Marmari Emanuel says. The heart has to change, to make life. Otherwise, we have death. He said, and I agree too, we really have death not until we accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. But he was interviewed, and he didn't go in all the details, but he knows that God is a sovereign God. It's in the Bible. So he chooses to still allow those people to have life. But really, it's death. And that's why Russia and Ukraine causes death. Recently, I saw on Wall Street Journal that, and I'm quoting because I don't like it. They use a lot of my ideas, but they don't quote me. And it gets me a little mad. I keep on forgiving many, maybe so many times a week. But in Wall Street Journal, that the writer talked about how that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was so upset. They were trying to make a peace treaty recently in Istanbul. And I've been in Istanbul. It's a beautiful place. It was at a beautiful castle, a beautiful historical place. But he was very upset. I don't know whether they're going to make the peace treaty, but they found out in one of the towns called Bruk, in one of the towns of Ukraine, in the war, they found 450 people killed, eyes poked out. And this is true. They have pictures. These are not false things. Arms cut off. Dismantled. 450 civilians, I don't think they were army people, okay? And the Russians had to get out of there so fast they couldn't hide them. That's what they said. And that city was like a beautiful city. Maybe it was like Beverly Hills or maybe Pasadena. It had regular Siegel family homes, and it had resorts. And most of the people died. And the word of the city called Butcher was Butcher. Okay, so this is called Butcher. It's translated in America. This is, and I don't go by symbolism. I go by logic first. I was taught that in my studies, okay? But when I see a symbol, I try to address it. But this shows it's the spirit of darkness, of death that's in these wars of the people. Just like a beautiful man named Mark Driscoll, he's a beautiful minister. He talked about, Hamas is the darkness of the snake, of the rod of the Pharaoh. I know I've been saying that for a long time. I saw that He just had a beautiful, he had like a beautiful ministry. He has a beautiful ministry, but a ministry alone just in that beautiful message. But I've been telling you that. So I believe that all these wars are the darkness of Satan. And even President Reagan said, evil like this is evil. He named it communism, and war like this is evil, but we need to protect ourselves. And then the next war is Israel-Hamas, what we just said. And Hamas, we just spoke about that point. We are also protecting. We need to protect Israel. Protecting Israel is protecting all Europe and all America. The Al-Qaeda is threatening. I just saw, those are videos, okay? It's not something I made up. They're threatening to come get Christians and make bombs, because I told you to be careful about the bombs. I told you to be very careful about the bombs that they bring in, that we need to all pray. Okay? So if they bring them in through the airport, and they're also Bernanke, they're threatening Gates and Elon Musk. We need to pray for all those men. And our country, the Christians, the believers, and the Israelites. We need to realize that these are all wars that America's doing. That's why we need to actually say, thank you, God, for keeping us safe. Then number 3, I told you, was the world controls of the war of the CCP virus, the CC vaccination, all the controls of the foods and everything. We'll review that. Then the other war is the borders. And the borders, a beautiful, beautiful man. A beautiful man. Let me get his name here. He talked about what's happening on the borders. And he was interviewed by Reactor, okay? Clayton Morris is the newscaster that interviewed him. And the man that he interviewed is a beautiful man named Ryan Matza. He gives his time, volunteer, to try to make people aware. He said there was just recently, in the last months, there's 4 million people coming from the border on these big trains, and they're not necessarily, most of them are not from Mexico. They stop off at Mexico, and then they go to in America. And that the NGOs, the people that are controlling this, all the borders, that they're also doing some fraudulent actions with the monies of the food, and also the foods. They're using their foods for their own needs. The NGOs, those are the people that are hired by United States, and also the monies of the airplanes, because they pay, their family gives them money to take an airplane from their country here in some instances, and they take the receipts and everything. And so something's just not right. There's some problems with the billions of dollars that's being used for the border. I wanted to say that that this is very serious, okay? And I told you that for me, the borders were the most important, side by side with the military, because we don't know who's coming in. And remember, I told you in my other podcast, it was a practice podcast. This is a practice podcast, but it's now on Facebook too. That why did the people come in? There's only could be a few reasons. Is they're preparing to use them for military, the military, or they want the Democratic vote, and also by Tucker. Tucker tells us that Tucker, he's also another famous man, that's a speaker, that he said that Chuck Schumer alone told us that that we need to get these 7 million men. We need to get these 11 million men coming in to our country to get the vote, the Democratic vote. Indirectly, he was saying that. There's a video of that. because they want the Democratic vote. That's what Tucker believes. That's not an old video. And then to replace all those working millionaires, those working 11 million men coming in, to replace them with the 7 million men and women that need jobs in our America already. And to top it off, we already pay $2,200 a month of the ones that are registered. That's a lot of money. You know, I know a doctor's wife that she gave herself so many years, 20 years. She doesn't get that much more than that every month for Social Security. Something's just not right, correct? That is terrible. That is terrible. I wanted to say that they use these, as I told you. Now, what do they use the people for? Human trafficking, body parts, sexual trafficking, work slavery. They might be setting up cells, not might, they are setting up cells. They call them cells, where there's like offices. I call them offices, they call them cells, where they could start war anytime. We need to realize that the ISIS came through there, possibly. And ISIS and big people, they use other people, not their nationality, to do their work. That's why China and the Mexican cartels and the other cartels, they work together for the fentanyl. And that's a war on drugs. It's a war. Do you understand, brothers and sisters? So what are we going to do about this? Now we ask, what are the solutions? What are the answers? The answers that we need to continue to try to make peace with Ukraine and Russia where it's possible. Then two, we need to protect Israel, and Hamas has to be obsolete. And many Palestinians have died. Okay, they didn't move the Palestinians out. Do you know how much money they have? Saudi Arabia, and I heard Saudi Arabia wants to come and get us in South Korea. In Korea, they want to start war. Are you listening? I don't want to make it too difficult for you if this is a lot of information, because I'm a generalist. So what are the solutions? First, we have to pray. Okay, all of us, just like our beautiful Bishop Marmar Emmanuel said, we have to give our heart to God for a miracle, to do justice, and he will listen. And he'll give us the power and the strength and the tenderness to overcome all these things. Now pause for a minute. Think about all those things I just told you. Kim Jong-un of North Korea, leader Kim Jong-un, he says he's thoroughly going to annihilate U.S. if South Korea is provoked. If South Korea is provoked. And be very careful. But also Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a big trouble. Their people are building bunkers and everything. They think there's going to be war in our country. And how are we going to solve? We're going to all pray. We're all going to do justice. We're going to vote in freedom for America. And vote in freedom is voting Trump. Vote in freedom is voting peace. I wanted to say thank you so much for your time. We're going into a wonderful advertisement. My name is Lisa Lee Chardon with Bold and Brave across the nation and internationally. LisaLeeChardon.com and AriseToGod'sTruth.com. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
All clear. That was great. Give yourself like a minute break, and then after that, we'll go right back into it.
Okay. Okay.